who ever heard of the Autopen? Well, we heard of the Autopen. We're politics geeks. All right. Trump tends to take his cues from these conservative figures and think tanks. So it was kind of brewing in that ecosystem that uh, Biden's executive orders and pardons should be rescinded because of the pen and because of his cognitive state. So an attorney general here, I think from Missouri, tweeted this out. I am demanding the DOJ investigate whether President Biden's cognitive decline allowed unelected staff to push through radical policy without his knowing approval. If true, these executive orders, pardons, and all other actions are unconstitutional and legally void. Not very long after, perhaps coincidentally, probably not, Trump picks up that ball and runs with it. The pardons that sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by Autopen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the Unselect Committee who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people should fully understand that they are the subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. All right, so before we go any further, I want to make something clear. We, as a show, have always maintained that the January 6th defendants were overcharged at best, and that many, perhaps most of them, shouldn't have been charged at all. We are of the opinion that there were feds in that crowd. It seems like that's been pretty well proven, and that this was probably a setup. All that having been said, and I also, I think I can speak for Keaton here, think those pardons were BS. And I think the pardons themselves set a dangerous precedent.
Meaning the pardons, the Biden pardons of the
Biden
people.
pardons.
Yeah.
I think they set a danger. Yeah, not the January 6th.
Right.
That they set a dangerous precedent for just giving people these blanket pardons before they've been accused of anything. The problems with that are and helping people evade justice and basically giving them permission to do whatever they want as long as they can get a pardon at the end of the administration that they're serving in are obvious. So yeah, all that having been said, what Trump is saying here is total bullshit, as we will see. So he gave a little interview about it. It was pretty funny. The president was an Autopen.
Autopen for a president, and we would have been better off if we had, probably. But it looks to me like, that's a big subject. I'm sure you won't ask about that, but the whole subject of Autopen, did he know what he was doing? Did he authorize it? Or is this somebody in an office, maybe a radical left lunatic, just signing whatever that person wants? That's not what
it was me. I wrote him. I signed it.
I never use it. I mean, we may use it as an example to send some young person a letter. It's nice, we get thousands and thousands of letters and letters of support for young people, for people that aren't feeling well, etc. But to sign pardons and all of the things that he signed with an Autopen is disgraceful.
To a woman whose son got his legs blown off in Afghanistan, I may have used an Autopen for that because I don't really care. It's a nicety. But I don't do it for anything important.
Okay, and on that, as we will see, and we'll continue on this, All right. So I think you can plausibly make the argument, and we have, that Joe Biden was sporadically running the country at most. That many of the decisions that were made around Biden were made by other people. From the beginning, uh, Keaton always used Jake Sullivan as kind of the proxy of the
Right.
entire Biden administration. Jake Sullivan is what is running the country right now, and perhaps who is running the country right now. So I wouldn't argue with the idea that Biden was cognitively unfit and probably didn't make a lot of the decisions that are attributed to him. I would agree with that. However, Biden literally gave interviews where he talked about the fact that he might give these pardons in advance. So you
Right.
really, this is one particular thing where if that's what you're going to predicate your case on, you don't have much of a case, as we will see when Washington's smartest sugar baby, Carolyn Levitt, was asked about this at the White House.
If the president was even consulted about his legally binding signature being signed onto documents. And so I think it's a question that everybody in this room should be looking into, because certainly that would propose perhaps criminal or illegal behavior if staff members were signing the president of the United States autograph without his consent.
Is on the record talking about issuing preemptive pardons to these people.
But was he aware of his signature being used on every single pardon? That's a question you should ask the Biden
Is there
White
any
House.
Evidence on that he wasn't aware of it?
You're a reporter. You should find out.
Okay,
Sean.
so I have a question on the.
Okay, you should find out. We're making the accusation, but you should find out and let us know when you find out something. Professional Dunning-Kruger victim Patrick Bet-Davis pulled this out of his ass, clearly with no knowledge of what he's talking about as usual. This is bad news for Fauci.
Hold on, let me do
Miley.
this. I do a good Patrick Bed. This is
Oh, go
bad
ahead.
news for Fauci, Milley, J6 committee, and Biden's family members. That's the how you do Patrick Bet David is every S is S. You don't
Yeah.
no,
Mhm.
every S. An Autopen can be used by precedents for administrative documents, but pardons require a wet signature by the precedent.
All right. So, that's very specific for something that is completely made up. Like, that's completely made up. There's absolutely no basis for that claim at all, but it sounds legit because he says, wet signature. It sounds like he got it from somewhere. He got it from his wet ass. That's where he got that from, the wet signature bit. Why Trump can't void Biden's pardons because of Autopen. According to the U.S. Constitution, the president has no such authority to overturn his predecessor's pardons, especially not based on the type of signature, legal experts say. Quote, the Constitution doesn't even require that the pardon be written. So the idea that the signature is by Autopen rather than by handwritten signature seems not relevant to the constitutionality, because Article 2 just says that the president has the power to pardon, says Bernadette Myler, a Stanford Law School professor and constitutional law expert. So we probably don't have a lot of them left in our audience at this point. But for anyone who takes Patrick Bet-David seriously, just remember how confidently he claimed something that has absolutely no bit. It's not even like you could possibly interpret it that way. No basis in fact at all.
Well, no, our first coverage of him was about the UPS drivers. Can you
Right.
believe they make a $49 an hour? No, they don't make
No,
that's
they
the
don't.
top
They
rate
don't.
under the
Right.
new contract. Yeah.
Autopen is an electronic signature that allows individuals to sign a document without physically being there. The signature mimics a handwritten signature, but is done by a computer. A vast number of statutes and other documents have been signed by Autopen, experts say. For instance, former President Barack Obama signed a national security measure via Autopen while he was in France. Myler says that if presidential pardons were to be invalidated because of an Autopen signature, that could bring into question other policies that were signed by such measures. Quote, when so much is being automated and put online, requiring some literalness in the signature really would be a step backward, she says. A 2005 guidance from the U.S. Department of Justice noted that a president does not need to personally perform the physical act of affixing his signature to a bill he approves and decides to sign in order for the bill to become law. Rather, the president may sign a bill within the meaning of Article 1, Section 7 by directing a subordinate to affix the president's signature to such a bill, for example, by Autopen. But aside from criticizing the use of the Autopen, Trump also appears to be undermining President Biden's cognitive ability at the time such pardons were issued. If Trump were to try to prosecute someone who received a presidential pardon, experts say the case would likely go to courts where Trump's actions are unlikely to stand. Quote, I can't imagine the court saying that it wasn't a valid pardon because of the Autopen issue, says Myler. Biden made statements regarding these pardons, so it would be hard to show that they weren't a decision of the president. And final point here, many have pointed out, and I think even the most diehard Trump supporters would have to agree with this. If you know Donald Trump, do you believe that Donald J. Trump, signed by hand 1,500 January 6th pardons? Do you believe that? Do you believe that Donald Trump sat there and signed 1,500 January 6th pardons? So if he were able to actually get this through a court, that would invalidate all of those pardons in all likelihood. So this is just, it's an insane argument. It's another example of flooding the zone, which again, I don't think Biden should have issued those pardons. I think January 6th defendants were overcharged. All of that is true, but this is another example of the Trump administration trying to see what it can get away with in regards to ignoring the law and the Constitution.
Well, I mean, it's such an Eric Cartman thing to say. But it was signed by Autopen, so therefore it doesn't matter. It's null and void. Null and void according to who? Like, what are you going to do?
Right.
Like, you need judges to preside, over
Hey, you
stuff.
guys, I'm going home.
I mean, it really is. I mean, this is something that Cartman would say if you were in charge. And I've always thought of Trump as like a grown-up Eric Cartman type. And it's that kind of, like, claiming, very sort of pettily claiming an authority that you clearly don't have, saying, this is the rule now. I say it's the rule. I say the pardon's void. What is the follow through there? There really is none. It's just, I mean, it's shit talking, I think, at the end of the day. But it's a funny example because it's an example that, it is an insight into his psyche where, in his mind, he really wants the ability to just declare something done because he has declared, well, the pardon's void, doesn't count. Right? It's like if you lose a basketball game, that last shot doesn't count, you were over the line, you were out of bounds, whatever. I say it. It doesn't matter whether a referee will enforce it. If there's no referee here to enforce it, I'm just going to insist that you participate in my version of events. And that's kind of what this is. I don't see how it's at all an enforceable order to say, well,
I don't think they're even going to take it to court. I think they know they don't have a leg to stand on when you've got Levitt telling the reporter to go find the evidence for their own claim.
Right.
And clearly they're just talking shit. But it is typical of what they've been doing. They just ignore law and the Constitution and see how far they can push it. In this case, they can't do anything without going to a court first. So I think they're just not going to bother with this one. This is not one of their priorities like deportations.
Please clap.